Well, welcome back to another episode of Surviving Life's Pickles, everybody. We just want to say thank you again for taking the time out of your day today to listen to us. We hope that we can enrich your day in this hour that you're with us today with some great information that hopefully will help you in your life, others in your life, or just put a smile on your face today. If we did that, we feel accomplished. So thank you again for tuning in and taking the time out of your busy lives to hang out with us today. As we do with every episode, we're going to start off with our gratitude today. And I'm going to have Hillary start it off, and then we're going to roll over to our wonderful guest, Darran, and myself before we get into today's topic. So, Hill, grateful for today.
Put me in the hot seat.
Always.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for beautiful fall weather. We're getting there.
Hey, you stole mine. That's mine too. I am grateful for sweater weather and it's coming, and I'm grateful that my house is all spookified and Halloween is coming. It's my favorite season all year. The smells, the tastes, the sounds, the feeling, just that whole feeling of fall is one of my most favorite things in the entire world.
That's awesome. They had pumpkin spice chocolate chip cookies in the office earlier this week. I almost took off with the whole package.
I agree.
Well, Darran, what about you? Anything else you're grateful for other than the fall weather right now?
I'm just grateful that next month I'll get to grateful for the opportunity to fly to Hawaii for the very first time in my life.
Oh, wow.
I've never been there. My wife and I are going to go there without the kids during their fall break, and it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about how you're doing that without the kids during fall break after this. That's a great trick.
Yeah.
Oh. What about you, Scott?
Well, today I'm just really grateful to be able to meet new people and interact with them, bring joy, hear their stories. I'm very excited to sit here with Darran today and learn more about him and kind of dive into this topic that we're going to sit and talk about today. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to meet the new people.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, everybody, we're here today, and I'm just going to call it because Darran seems like a little bit of a jokester, but Darran is here today, and he is, I'm going to call him the blind therapist today. Darran, is that okay with you?
Yeah, well, we can do that. That works.
So Darran is currently a therapist, an LCSH.
LCSW.
LCSW at a drug and treatment facility. And Darran, how long have you been doing that?
I have been working in recovery and residential IOP, PHP, probably since 2012. So 13 years.
A few years underneath your belt.
Yeah, I've been around the moon a few times with this work.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing. And I am just super intrigued about you as a therapist. You seem like a genuinely great guy, pretty laid back, full of life. But you have a gift, in my opinion, Darran, where you don't get to see everything fully because of your restriction with your eyesight. You really get to dive into and know people and learn people for who they are inside.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that before from other people. Just a note of reference. Back when I was doing my master's program in social work at the University of Utah, I was doing supervision with one of the professors, and one of the things that I did was able to record my session with the person I was doing with, and I brought it in and showed him, but he only watched maybe 5, maybe 7 minutes of the thing and told me to turn it off, and I was perplexed because we do supervision for an hour. But here he was, 20 minutes later, we were done. I'm like, what, Dr. Dave, what's the deal here, He turned around and he looked at me. He says, Darran, we have a lot of people that come in to the MSW program. They all get 4.0s and all this kind of stuff, but they don't have what you have. And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, Darran, You have something very special. It cannot be taught and it cannot be learned, and it's very innate. And that came at a very hard time in my program there because I just finished my first year and I was having doubts about what I could do if I would move forward, what that would look like. But that just revigorated me, gave me a lot of energy, and I held on to that and I graduated with a 3.96.
Wow.
Believe it.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine, and we were talking, and your wife's here in studio with us, and we were talking beforehand, and it really, when we look at somebody, it's just in human nature to immediate put some judgment just by what we see,
From what they look like.
from what they look like.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask you, how is that different in your situation as you don't get that initial full vision view of them? How do you kind of put together what you think about this person as you're getting to know them with just be able to hear, smell, touch them?
I think I go back and rely on my intuition, but I also think about something that my dad shared with me. It was very wise at the time. Um, he said, Darren, everybody has a disability. Some of them are physical, just like yours. Others are spiritual, things that, invisible. People don't see those.
Hmm.
And so I thought about that, and I try to practice that non-judgment because, we live in a society with lots of judgments and misunderstandings, and we hear rumors and things like this. And this morning I read a story on Facebook that kind of touched me. And it's about a teacher who did an experiment with her school kids. And she said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around because they were studying the Salem witch stuff, back in
The witch
Salem,
trials.
yeah. And so she said, I'm going to either come around and whisper in your ear if you're a witch or if you're a normal person.
Uh-huh.
And so she went around the class and she said, okay, you guys can go around, try to find somebody, find your group. If you're a witch and you're not with your witch friends, you lose
Hmm.
and things like that. And so you see the kids and their faces and how they're trying to acclimate and nervousness of how do we do this, And then after the experiment was done, the teacher asked the students, okay, let's show of hands. Who is a witch? None of the kids raised their hands.
Hmm.
And the moral of the story is that things we hear, the biases, the rumors, they can be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And her point was, we hear these things about the Salem witch trials, but that was a very dangerous time because people were focusing on rumors rather than what is true.
And not actually diving in, doing the research from the self, trying to find out the true facts about the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Darren, I'm intrigued, and I want to ask, what drove you down the career path to become a therapist, and a therapist specifically in the recovery?
So, years ago, when I was married to my ex-wife, I was a stay-at-home dad for all of that life,
Hmm.
and I would walk my kids to and from elementary school and all this kind of stuff. And then, because of my blindness and even my hearing loss, I got involved with a bunch of message boards from the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I just put my name out there and saw people, parents freaking out. How do we help our child who are blind, and how do we rescue, not rescue them, but things like this. And so all of a sudden, I'm very active on these message boards and my emails out there. And so all the people were emailing me And so that's kind of what I did during the day while my kids were at school. And it just dawned on me that's really what social work does.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that, and fast forward to 2011. I underwent my first cochlear implant surgery because I was like, how can I go to school if I can't hear? Because at that time, I only had maybe 5% of speech discrimination with a hearing aid.
Hmm.
That's not very much. And losing vision and not being able to lip read, that created some unique challenges.
Yeah.
And so then 6 weeks after my was activated on my right ear, then I realized, oh, I'm hearing distinct notes on a piano. You have to understand, I grew up playing the piano at home, and I played the stage piano and jazz growing up in high school, along with percussion and kettle drums.
Huh.
And, so music has always been important to me. And so a year later, I went and got my left ear done. And lo and behold, that has really changed my world around. And in the fall of 2013, I, applied for graduate school.
It's amazing.
You took something that was fun, kind of a hobby during the day, and turned it into what you get paid to do, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always had passion to, work with families or individuals with vision loss or losing vision loss. And so after I completed my master's, I actually had two jobs. I worked in an IOP in Sandy, and then I also worked at the Moran Eye Center as teaching orientation to vision loss and adjustment to vision loss
Hmm.
classes when, with, the patients that they can't be, corrected medically. Then they would come take my class, and I would get them connected to different community resources and connect to those resources and have them come in and talk to my patients that I work with. And then, one thing led to another, and then I ended up going back into substance use full time. And what started that adventure was my practicum in my
Hmm.
second year in grad school. Um, and I've identified that I love working with trauma. I found it fascinating, and I've been, with substance use for ever since then. I mean, I've tried outpatient regular therapy. That didn't seem fun to me. I feel like the more complex things are, working with family systems, that's where I get the most gratitude, and being able to feel like I can help people who are struggling with addiction in one form or another.
Mhm. It's nice with the family systems. You're not just helping one person, you're helping multiple people. You're helping the entire family.
Exactly, because it is a family disease, and it's probably one of the only ones out there that's listed as a family disease. And so helping people, stay in their lane. And as the big book says, keep your side of the street clean, and helping family members how they can keep their side of the street clean in addition to, the residents and patients that they work with.
Yeah.
So, question comes to mind with that. As you're starting this journey down full-time substance abuse, working with the families, I'd like to know a little bit about your process as you're kind of getting to know them. And because you aren't be able to see them physically, I'd really love to learn about how you kind of get to know them through that first conversation, just by listening, and what type of listening and skills that you've developed to identify and kind of mold your picture of that person.
I think, first of all, I explain to them what I do and do not see.
Hmm.
And then obviously I have a guide dog, and he's always a good break the ice type of helper.
Yeah.
And so, just telling them, and if they're, really struggling as to take, I just tell it straight from my heart. It says, I see you, I hear you, and there's no judgment from me. And I think part of that is because I'm in recovery myself,
Hmm.
and I get it, and I get they're scared, I get that all of that kind of stuff, so I can relate to where they're at and trying to identify where they're at in this whole process. Sometimes it takes a couple of visits, meeting them in the hallway, over multiple days if I'm not sitting in my office with them. There's a big joke at the office that in my office, there's a sign there that says Jedi Master.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, it says, I got some really cool Jedi mind tricks. And so people get a laugh of that. And so I try to make light of, some of the uncomfortableness that they might have with a blind therapist. They've never been with one, but, first they say, yeah, I'm okay. And then, once they realize this, I've had clients tell me, he says, you know what, I hear from other people that they ask me who I have as a therapist, and the feedback they get is you're lucky to have Darran. And so for me, it's like, wow. But listening to them, trying to pick out the cues of what's happening in their life in the moment and what that process is, and actually validate what their experience and repeating back what they're saying to me and make sure I totally understand where they're at. And once I can do that process with them, then, there's that rapport building and things, people just kind of seem to settle in.
Yeah.
To me, and I've worked with a few different people. I've worked with a couple vision impaired people and hearing impaired people over the years. And I always am intrigued and impressed with how the rest of their senses are amplified when one of them goes away. And I will say, always having an intimate conversation for me with a person who has vision impairity has always been a little nerve wracking because I feel like they can see right through the bullshit.
Exactly.
Because they really listen to your voice. They really can hear you and understand and feel what you're trying to relay to them. And I've been in sales my whole life. Half of that is looking the part. If you talk to anybody, it's looking the part, making sure you're going in, have the attitude and, the confidence. But when it comes down to it, you don't see any of that. You see who they really are.
Yeah, but I would like to make a slight correction here. Is just because somebody loses one sense doesn't necessarily mean the others are more keen. We just use them more.
Yeah.
Because we live in such a visual and auditory world, so that's what people know. And so for somebody like me who's deaf and blind, I'm very much a tactile person.
Yeah.
My kids hate me because I put my hand on the countertop. They tell me it's clean. My wife says it's clean, but when I put my hand on there, it says, no, it's not. Because I can pick up those little small things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to be mindful that even though I utilize my other senses a lot, that doesn't mean that needs to dismiss, the efforts of my kids or anything like that, and learn to trust that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good lesson to take, even.
Yeah. So as people are coming in, you're sitting down with them. What are things that you listen to and kind of I guess, back up a second. The reason behind this question is I get the impression you're very, very good at non-judgmental listening and you listen with empathy. And so to relay kind of the steps that you go through, I'd love to be able to teach some of the listeners a little bit about that. And so my question is what things do you listen for as far as maybe how a person talks or maybe their tone as you're trying to get to know them? What are things that stand out to you?
The biggest thing is trying to that I rely on is what kind of energy do I feel in the room? What's that energy that they put out? If they're agitated or anxious, the energy feels a little different than if they're not, you know. So that's my first thing is I try to feel what the energy is, and I will use words like, hey, I'm hearing this in your voice. I mean, can you help me understand this? What is, you know, it feels like to me that you're highly anxious by the way you're talking, and, you know, can you help me understand that a little bit better? You know, just trying to connect with them so that they can say, oh yeah, you can't see, but what information can they give to you that can help me with that? And I use that a lot when I do brain spotting interventions with trauma. And so I use the clients a lot when I, you know, scan their visual field to find a spot where they have some psychosomatic activation throughout their body when we're talking about a situation, because I can't see how their eyes are blinking or they pay attention to those type of cues. And so I have to have some dual attunement connecting with them at a different level, especially like around the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can ask questions based on how I'm feeling, what I'm picking up from them, and their response.
That's fascinating. I've always felt like I have been a little more keen to energies in the room.
Mhm.
Maybe that's why I'm really good in HR. I don't know, but I can pick up different energies of when somebody's a little more agitated, or when somebody's stressed, or when somebody's calm or excited or happy, or things like that. And it never really occurred to me that that was something that you work with, that
Mhm.
you can sense just coming into the room, but it makes complete sense to me.
Mhm. Yeah, because I can feel somebody if they're closed off. Then I have to figure out, okay, if he's closed off, what can I do to, you know, in therapy words, come through the back door?
Ah,
Oh,
mhm.
And so I will, you know, use a little of my Jedi mind tricks to kind of work in there and come in that way and see what I can pop out. And, you know, just depending on the resistance and depending who I'm working with it, you know, got to roll with resistance, because in substance use, there's a lot of people that are not ready to change yet. And
Yeah,
that's okay. And I tell them that, you know, you're here, but what can we do together? And I think that's the other important thing with substance use is being able to work collaboratively together. What are your goals? How can we achieve this despite family pressures or boundaries
yeah.
so that they can get something out of it?
yeah.
I love that.
Well, and you say body language, and I've taken a couple body language courses and how to read body language, how to send off different types of body language.
Mhm.
And as I was thinking, as you were talking through that, I was just kind of looking at your body language here, Darren, and you are so relaxed
Mhm.
and you make me feel comfortable. Like I could sit here and have a conversation just about anything because you're just here to be here in the moment. You don't have anything else on your mind. It feels like you're fully engaged in the moment just with how relaxed and everything you are. And I envy that a little bit, that you just absorb the energy and sit here in the moment to be part of it.
I think, you know, you just kind of get used to that. That's part of your traits as you move forward. And, you know, because I've got to be my own man. Because in therapeutic relationships, 85% of therapy is based on your rapport with your client. The 15% is based on the actual intervention.
Yeah.
And so you've really got to get to really know who these people are and connect to them as you can.
Oh, I really like that. I
Mhm.
mean, and it's very comforting.
Yeah.
So,
Darren, I would love to know just a little bit more about you as a person. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? What did your childhood look like?
I grew up in Eastern Oregon in a small town called Weston.
Okay.
Growing up, I always called it the town of the nearly dead because there was a lot of elderly people,
Oh no.
and we were kind of right in the middle of, at the base of the Blue Mountains, and the nearest town would be, 7 miles north, which is, I think it was at that time was about 5,000 people, maybe, I don't know about, and then go into the Washington state line, go into Walla Walla, Washington, which is, a bigger town, and then going south, going into Pendleton. So, if you ever see the Pendleton Clothing Company and stuff, yeah, I mean, that's my background, right? And the stomping ground right there.
Yeah.
So I grew up, in a small rural community, primarily farming. Both my parents worked at a food processing plant where they harvest peas, carrots, lima beans. I think they did something else, but I can't remember. And that's what they did. And a lot of my friends were in families that were farmers all the way around us.
Yeah.
Wheat farming, pea farming, things like that. And so I grew up in this really small town, and um, from kindergarten all the way up to high school, when I graduated, I would say that 90%, 95% of the kids I went to kindergarten with or graduated with me.
Wow.
So there's a lot of sameness, from start to finish through there. I don't think there's too many people that left. Few people came in,
Mm-hmm.
but I was there, and then I went to public school. When I was in sixth grade, I got to the point where I was struggling with some things. I had some good vision, so I had a sign language interpreter in sixth grade through high school until I graduated. Um, I'm completely blind in the dark. My parents knew that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
My mom couldn't understand why when she, would give me a bottle when I was a toddler and I wouldn't grab it like my siblings did. But she had to grab my hand and take me to where she was holding the bottle, and I grab it and I go back to bed.
Yeah.
So I've always had night blindness, growing up, never seen stars in my life.
Oh.
I've seen the moon, I've seen the space station, I've seen those things, but, I don't see, any stars or things like that. But, life was pretty normal. I mean, I was able to drive, 15 until about 25-ish. My parents knew that they could trust me. I would be home before dark because there's no way in hell I would be driving at night.
Yeah.
Um, and so, that my parents just let me live and be, I mean, my dad got me a motorcycle. I rode motorcycles with my dad. I went fishing a lot with him. I even went hunting.
Hmm.
And as my vision got worse, I thought I was gonna not be able to hunt again. So I lost the idea that I would engage with hunting until, oh gosh, 3 years ago, where my wonderful wife was on the spousal support group, and she ran into another spouse of a guy who's totally blind who hunts. And so my interest of hunting. And so I've been hunting the last 2 years straight. And last year I shot a deer at 525 yards and dropped it right there.
That is so cool.
And then, and not only that, my gunsmith, he invited me to hunt on a ranch back out in eastern Utah. I'd have to go all the way to Nevada and come down to Nevada and punch back into Utah. We're out in the middle of nowhere
Uh-huh.
to hunt cow elk on a ranch. Um, so I've been getting back into hunting. I've got connected to a friend of mine who lives in Idaho. He has a Facebook page and nonprofit called The Blind Hunter. I'm getting connected with some other stuff like that. I've got a hunting license for the state of Wyoming, so I can legally hunt in Utah and Wyoming.
Huh.
And I'm just expanding from there and, getting back into stuff like that. One of the things I also did with my rifle is I can shoot a bullseye at 1,000 yards.
That is so cool.
So it sounds like I need to get with Darran so he can teach me how to shoot because I can't hit something 50 yards in front of me. So
The one time I took him shooting, he had a hard time with it because Scott wears glasses. And when he was trying to aim, his glasses were interfering with the scope.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So I have an adapter on the end of my scope. I connect to it. It magnifies the target, and it's connected to a 5-inch monitor that's mounted on top of my scope. And so you don't have to look at the scope per se. You just see it on that 5-inch monitor that's on top of the scope, and I can see some to align it, but I have my friend help me finish it up, and then the rest is history.
Yeah.
So really, we need to hire Darran if we ever need to get rid of a dead body because they'll never believe that the blind guy shot the person, right?
That's funny.
Well, that's impressive, Darran. You haven't let any of your physical things slow you down at all.
No, and no, I've always, let's go back to that commercial that John Ritter did back in the day. When there's a will, there's a way.
Oh, yeah.
That brings back.
So that's been my mantra, if there's a will, there's a way, and we'll find a way. And my best friend, who is completely deaf, is, I've known him for, over 20 years, and he's been trying so hard to figure out how to get me in these mountains here in Utah for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asked other people, he's done research, and now we finally found it. So
that's awesome. So I really want you've intrigued another question. So we have a friend of ours who is suffering from a new physical ailment that changed his whole life. He had a stroke just over a year ago.
Oh no.
And it has really set him back on a lot of his physical goals. But mentally, the guy is super strong. And he is one of these guys that isn't going to let it beat him. But sometimes that physical part is getting in his way. I want to ask you, because I know he'll probably be listening, what advice would you give somebody like that who has now come across a new physical impairment? How can they kind of, I guess, release that part of themselves so they can move forward?
That's a good question, and I think I have an answer for this, and I talk about this with my clients, whether it's in process group or individually or with their families, is you don't have to let your past define who you are. You can allow it to refine you. So I use that analogy a lot. It says, hey, I'm blind. It's part of who I am, but that's not going to define who I am. And so if we have physical, challenges or whatever that is, hey, that's part of you. That's great. Just like I have black hair, that's okay. But not to let that define you, because I'm always, okay, what can I do to adapt to the situation and keep on going?
Yeah. It's not, don't let that part be the definition that you give yourself.
Exactly.
I'm the guy who just got paralyzed, or I'm the guy who lost this. Change that mindset is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and my wife, she's got a friend that she grew up with, and she was an Olympian, but she had an accident that, she was in the Winter Olympics with skiing and stuff, and she had an accident that landed her paralyzed.
Wow.
Because she broke her back. But she was able to, she was in that slump, but then she started seeing and doing other things and realizing I can still do a lot of connections and a lot of work. And so she's now a para-Olympian, and she is also a commentator for, the Paralympics in the wintertime when they go around.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. They're just taking and kind of re-scripting.
Exactly. Because my perception is my reality, but perhaps my perception is off.
Yeah.
And so we're rewriting, we're doing some what we call cognitive restructuring. So we're changing the narrative that we do have that may or may not be true. And that's kind of the confirmation bias. We look at that and we try to connect those parallels, but is it true? Is it necessary? And as these things you're telling yourself help you get to where you need to be or want to be.
It's beautiful. It slightly reminds me a little bit of my own story where I had this plan for my life, or I thought I had this plan for my life of where it was going to go. And something put a wrench in that. And unfortunately, I self destructed for a long time after that because my whole life's plan was kind of thrown out of the way. But when I got into recovery, I remember almost somebody saying the similar thing, like, don't let your past define you. It doesn't make you who you are. It's what you do with it going forward, and changing that narrative into something good.
Yeah, that's super important to understand because, we are our own worst critics, according to research with Brene Brown, who's a social worker down at the University of Houston.
Mhm.
And you've probably seen some of her TED Talk with, vulnerability, shame,
Yeah, she's
and
great.
stuff like that. And so I take a lot of what she's taught and incorporate it in my own life and then try to pass what I've learned and help the people I work with so they can shift their perspective, because that's part of learning and understanding is what is going on right now, what needs to shift so we can take a step back and be objective about what's going on in our lives, because substance use is a symptom of something. It's not the solution, but it's a symptom. And so we go back into the behaviors.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of shame around substance use because society has a big stigma on that. And so society, it's hard to navigate what social expectations are. And we often prejudge ourselves because we're codependent. We want to please other people. And that can lead us down into a dark path.
Really like that. And as you're going through that, something's been on my mind for the last few weeks is taking that personal inventory
Yeah, exactly.
of this is what's happened to me. This is what I am doing about it. This is what I can do about it. What of these things are actually benefiting me, and what ones do I need to push away so I can focus on what matters? And it's doing that personal inventory. And we've had people and other therapists on the show here that have talked about it the same way with substance abuse and alcoholism, but also with physical things. I've had a good friend of mine that was paralyzed and has taken this mindset of, I'm not going to let this define who I am and moving forward. And I just hear that coming from you as inventory of your purpose and inventory of what you actually need in life is first and foremost, probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of like step 10, right?
Hmm.
What's your intention for the day?
Yeah.
And that's where that personal inventory comes into play, is how can we examine our lives? The 12 steps are principles. It doesn't have to be just for alcoholics, cocaine users, heroin users, or whatever. These are true tested principles. We can apply this to many different aspects of our lives.
I agree. Hmm.
I have people do step 1. All right, we work through the alcohol. What about let's work through this with codependency with your wife,
Hmm.
and come back to me and tell me how that is.
Really, really attacking, like you said, the problem head on
Exactly.
not the symptom itself.
Right.
And that can really apply to so many different things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Darren, tell me, so what brought you to Utah?
I moved here 25 years ago. There was a couple of reasons that brought me here, and one was my ex-wife's family was here. She moved here when she was 14, and then her family was here, and then one of my older brothers also lived here. I'm very, very close with him,
Okay.
and I wanted his kids and my kids to be close together. So we decided to come down this way, and it's been a good change. But now my brother no longer lives in Utah,
Oh.
and we still talk every day.
hmm Do you enjoy living in Utah? Or do you think you'll move on from here at some point?
Well, I mean, I've got three small, young kids at home, 14, 12, and 8, and they got their friends and stuff here. I don't see myself moving anytime soon, to be honest.
Yeah.
I love it here because I got my support system to go hunting.
hmm
I've got access to potentially hunting up in Wyoming through friends and other family contact members.
hmm
And I'm pretty content here. I like it. I mean, the mountains are right here. If we need to go in the mountains, we go right there.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing missing is that the Oregon coast isn't 4 hours away.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw it because I mean, your wife is here again in studio. You guys might not come back from Hawaii. If this is his first trip, you might not come back.
And that could be true too, because I have a cohort I went with. She's licensed in Utah and in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And so she moved there and she's, doing telehealth Hawaii and in Utah as well. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, that's the benefit of technology these days. You can do your work from almost anywhere. You could be on the beach doing telehealth with people.
Yeah.
I've thought about that.
You could also be up in the mountains as well. So there's both sides of that. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Except for I don't do well when there's humidity, so I might not like it too well there.
Yeah. Well, Darren, I really want to ask you, you've been working in the recovery world. You've been working as a therapist for a few years now. Is there a certain case or a certain client that stands out that really just sits there on your heart that was a special experience for you? And obviously keeping confidentiality with no names or anything, but is there an experience or a person that really stands out that solidified that you love what you're doing?
Oh, there's too many to named, one of them, I can't just pick one person.
I'd say that.
It's
seems
hard. It's really hard. I had one client, they came down, they came back to the reunion at work, the alumni reunion and stuff. And he called me up and says, "Hey, Darren, I'm coming down to the reunion and I got a anniversary gift for you." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he says, "Don't tell me you forgot." And I'm like, "What?" and then he told me, and I'm like, "Oh crap. How can I forget that?" So his birthday, his wife's birthday, they're on the same day,
hmm
and it's my hire date.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Okay.
And so he came down, and he knows I've got Star Wars stuff in my office. I got a lightsaber. I've got a sign that says Jedi Master. I've got a Baby Yoda Bop It. I've got a sign that says "Do or do not. There is no try." Quoting Yoda.
That's our son's ringtone right now, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. So what he brought to me, which I thought was very ironic, he said I needed balance in the Force. So he brought me this Darth Vader. And ironically enough, Darth Vader's on top of my bookshelf on one corner, and Buddha sitting on the other corner on that same level on top of my bookshelf.
So you got the light and the dark.
Exactly.
Well, you have to have that equal balance because nobody is all light and nobody is all dark. I don't care what they say.
Yeah, there's a piece of both in all of us. And, the dark does come out from time to time, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I think the biggest struggle is like you were saying, how can I shift from shame to guilt so I can take that inventory and figure out, okay, what can I control and what can I change?
Yeah.
Because if we're stuck in shame saying I'm a bad person and have low self-esteem, low self-worth, low confidence, then we can't change. But if we're willing to look at this, hey, I made a mistake, and we can shift our thinking that way, then we can do this. And I tell people, it says creating new neural pathways in our brain that are healthy is a lot going off-roading. Because right now your addiction created supernatural highways, super slick, and it's easy for your brain to just go right down there. That's what we know. But when we teach you skills and different ways of thinking and perspectives, it's kind of like going off-roading. It's a little bumpy and it can be hard. But then I ask them, what happens to the road if you keep using that?
Hmm.
And then they realize like it's smoother and smoother. And it says exactly. So as you continue to play these skills, even though it might be difficult right now, you keep doing it, it's going to be easier and easier to do it. And it'll come to you like second nature.
Yeah. I love that analogy.
I do. It just hit me because maybe that's why we like off-roading so much.
Maybe.
We like the challenges because it does get easier after doing it a few
Yeah,
times.
exactly.
But I'd like to, you brought up something, and I don't know if you've heard about this yet, Darran, but there's a new guy. He's not new to the business world. He is new to the psychology world. His name is Curtis Morley, and he is the first emotionologist. And what he is doing is he's creating, he's almost finished writing his first book on this, but what he has done is he's been doing years of research on emotions themselves, the counterfeit ones and the real ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up shame and guilt, which is one that he's actually created and just launched his full-time recovery program that focuses on the shame part of addiction. But I would love to hear your definition, because shame and guilt are two very different things and they get misconstrued a lot. And I would love to hear what you have to say about shame and guilt and how to recognize one from the other.
It's very simple. I actually draw from Brene Brown. I really love her work.
Mm-hmm.
Shame, I am bad. Where you're really shaming yourself for doing what you did. And you just kind of, keep beating yourself up, practicing that self-judgment against yourself. Whereas guilt is I did something, I made a mistake, but I can change this. I can own this and I can improve. And that's kind of the different thing there. But when I work with a lot of clients who deal with shame, I teach them about empathy, because the antidote to shame is empathy.
Correct.
And so I have them do some work around self-compassion and self-love, and writing some assignments. Who are you closest to? Who are you loved by the most? Those type of things in it. And then, some of them, the residents say it's going to be my grandfather or my grandmother or whatever. This is okay. Now I want you to write a letter from the perspective of your grandmother or your grandfather about self-love.
Oh,
People get stuck and like, how do I do that? I says, don't overthink it. Just let it go. See what happens, because people overthink things, but our brain has filters in our head that we just kind of go in cycles and cycles. But once we start penning things down, we can bypass that filter and a lot of stuff just starts coming up.
Yeah.
I really like that. And that kind of goes along with one thing I've been trying to do is the exercise of looking yourself in the mirror and recognizing who you are, saying you're not those things that you did.
Mm-hmm.
You are this person, and just acknowledging that. So you can, like you say, kind of let that guilt fall away.
It's like a self-affirmation.
Positive affirmations, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
really like that. Thank you.
people who have body dysmorphia or, about different things. And sometimes, I have them do assignments, looking at themselves naked in the mirror and just tell them that they love them.
Yeah.
And just so they can kind of work through that and shift their perspective, just positive affirmations. I mean, I always tell people, says, well, I go to a mirror, it looks all blurry, so I think I'm okay.
That's great. Well, I want to ask Darran, as we are kind of wrapping things up, I've had a great time learning a lot about you and some of the ways that you go about doing therapy. Through your life, you've had a lot of amazing experiences, probably both some good, some bad. Out of those experiences, what have you learned that you would feel very empowering to put out there in the world today? If somebody's struggling, or if somebody's having self-doubt, or if somebody's not sure about therapy, kind of any of those realms, that something you've learned that has helped you that you feel is powerful to share.
I think it's important to recognize there's always a listening ear somewhere.
Mm.
And it may not be who you think it is. Like, it may not be a family member, or it may not be a best friend, or it may not do this, but you get to decide who it is you feel comfortable with, you trust, because you got to look for safety. Because if there's no safety in your relationship to be able to reach out and talk about these hard things, then, that's what I do. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. It's just, what do you need to feel safe so you can have these difficult conversations? It's not that I don't think that anybody's listening, but positive, self-reflection, active listening, active reflection, using I statements. Hey, Scott, when you told me that I didn't get the yard done, it made me feel like I was a piece of crap. What I need you to do is say, hey, Darran, do you need some help here?
Like that.
And so I think how we approach things is, is how we can resolve a lot of communication issues, a lot of things like that. I have to practice that every day.
Yeah. I love that. I heard you say, I'm going to repeat it because I loved it so much. There's always someone to listen to or listen to you, but you might not know who it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that brings up one other question I had for you. And I know you're probably aware that September is Suicide Prevention Month. And there's a lot of stuff going on. We've got a couple engagements that we're working with and doing this month. But with that, with exactly what you just said, that's so powerful, because there's people out there that are struggling, that are having these suicide ideations, and who do I talk to? And I really want to repeat that again, because that's so powerful. Of there's somebody out there willing to listen. It might not be who you expect, but you just need to find that person that you feel safe with.
Exactly. And then we have that 988 number now.
Mhm.
Yes.
Somebody's struggling, dial 988. It'll get you to a crisis center. People do their jobs not because they have to, but because they want to.
Yeah.
And in my work, every meeting they say, what is your why?
Mhm.
And they pick people out, what is your why? Why do you work here? And for me, I do it because I can help somebody and hopefully change their lives in a direction that's going to be conducive to who they truly are,
Mhm.
connect with their true self.
Yeah. I really like that. And I always like revisiting that why, because sometimes that why may change a little bit. It may vary, but it stays pretty normal. Once you grasp onto that why,
Mm-hmm.
it may vary a little bit from side to side, but it's always right there in that same area. So
Yeah.
I really, really love that. Well, as we wrap up, Darran, we always kind of turn the tables. me and Hillary here, we've asked you a lot of questions and got to know you. Is there a question you have for both of us, one of us? Anything else you would love to know that maybe has been on your mind since we've been sitting down today?
Not in particularly. I mean, I've never thought about that, but something that is really getting my curiosity now is when can we go shooting?
I love that. I have one more question for you, Darren, and it's kind of a really, really tough one. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Well, he is already
A superhero.
a superhero.
He is. But if you had an extra superpower,
He's just like Daredevil already.
Yeah, that is a tough one because I can't be anybody else but me.
oh, I love.
So my superhero would have to be just to be me. But if I tease with residents that addiction sucks.
Mhm.
But I said I'd be the richest man in the world if I could just wave a magic wand and make this all disappear.
Yeah.
That would be my superpower if I could do that.
Oh, I love that one.
I do. And I honestly think that's probably the best answer we've ever had.
I think
I'll
so.
remember that one for a long time. I appreciate that, Darren.
Yeah.
But on the shooting thing, we're definitely going to have to talk. I'm very intrigued. I really want to go.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in again today. This has just been a great episode. Sitting here with Darren, getting to know him, and learning about a little bit different side of therapy, coming from a different point of view and the things that he's worked on. He shared a ton of great knowledge and information today. So we really hope that this has helped you and that somebody has come to mind that this could help, and you will feel free to pass this information on. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. We couldn't do it without you. Your continued support, your continued tuning in, your continued love that you share by telling everybody about what we're doing here is how we can continue this going. We appreciate it. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to see you guys next week on the next episode of Surviving Life's Pickles. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Hey, where's the intro and the exit music? I'm ready to dance.